Okay, it is 2:02, so we will get started. Again, I want to thank you for logging in today. This is something that's a little bit different in terms of outreach to providers and prevention staff statewide, in terms of better supporting ECCO and the user needs. One of our focus points for the TTA Center is trying to better evaluate and collect feedback from the actual user, so we can use feedback to better design and make improvements upon the system at large. And this is really one of our first attempts to do so. We, as you see on the screen in and of itself, we hope to provide an opportunity for forums like this that we call online support a couple of times a year at least. We have another one scheduled for after the new year, and perhaps another one in the summer. The date hasn't been announced yet. But one of the missions I think I might give each of you is to think about if it would be beneficial for us to set up every other week drop-in sessions online, virtual support sessions. So if you or your staff are having issues, you know that we're here. We're always here, day in and day out, but we are here on a scheduled time frame each and every month to share experiences and issues and those type of things. So I would ask you to kind of consider that, and we'll include one of those questions in the after webinar survey if we need to schedule based on statewide needs. Weekly sessions every other week or something for this just drop in. Registration is not required. You just know that we're having office hours, so to speak, in the afternoons or the mornings. This is the first stage of that, of course. The second stage, hopefully everybody received an email yesterday afternoon late, I hope. And that email included 5 completely optional, but 5 5 invitations for in-person support and a focus group opportunity for ECCO. Again, we want to hear from providers and schedule after the new year focus group and support sessions throughout the state to really listen to providers, gain their feedback on the system. Again, this is face-to-face, and actually observe, for those of you who are willing to allow us to observe your usage pattern in terms of, in hopes that we can observe ways, and you can share ways with us that could maybe speed the process up, improve design features, or ways to simplify, to streamline processes, and basically to begin understanding how users statewide are using ECCO technically, in terms of your techniques and best practices and suggestions that might benefit other users as well. So we really want to ask users and start asking these questions, not only in webinars like today, but also during those face-to-face sessions. How prevention professionals are navigating the system. Is it efficient? Is it not? What parts of the systems are used the most and the least? Understanding your workflow. How do you prepare to enter information into ECCO? What's your paper process, the data entry process? How can we help streamline those processes? And the real big question that I'm certainly most interested in is how can we improve the system for each and every one of you as best we can, given the timing limitations and funding limitations and so forth. Hopefully that's the first 60 minutes or so of the event. And the second 60 minutes and beyond is that in-person support we want to provide each of you face-to-face with any particulars or in specific ECCO issues that may be unique to your agency, or just general issues you're having trouble with in terms of daily use. again, those events have already been scheduled, and again, there's 5 statewide, and they're not the 5 locations are not chosen based on catchment area. They're basically LME catchment area. They were chosen geographically to try to spread out and provide close to home opportunities as best we could. The first one being in Hickory in January the 10th for the Interstate 77 area providers. January the 29th in Asheville. We have not nailed down a actual location in Asheville yet for restroom providers, but we will in coming weeks. Let's see, February the 19th with Alliance in Fayetteville. We have not visited Fayetteville as a TTA center, so we hopefully can address the issues of the southeastern providers in that network. Here in Winston-Salem at the TTA center on February the 25th, and Eastport in Rocky Mount on March 7th. So those are the 5 dates of those in-person support sessions. And again, we will be there whether there's 1 person in attendance or 15. And we certainly want to invite folks to come out and talk with us and let us help you. But of course, that support is always available at any time. So what I do want to do before we kind of kick things off in detail is hear from everyone else. And this may inform our conversations. I did send out an email a couple of days ago asking for questions or things that we can talk about during today's conversation. But I also want to throw that out again for all of us to talk about, since there's 36 of us online. And I'll be happy to unmute your phone, or you may be able to unmute yourself on your end and hear from folks who may have questions or concerns or things we need to start talking about off the bat. Anything out there? You could also chat any questions into the question box as well. Okay, well, let's go to my questions that we collected the past 2 days from participants. And those of you who submitted questions, thank you so much. We really do appreciate those submissions. I will attempt to make this larger so we can all see much better. So these were some questions submitted in advance related to ECCO and general usage themes. My apologies for the delay today. Did we have any updates on removing the 2017-18 intervention forms or those listing of interventions from the errors section? So if you are familiar with where you report staff errors, there's a drop-down box that lists all of your interventions, and interventions from all years are listed. So the question refers to if we have SINAR as one of our intervention profiles, and we are attempting to report on SINAR errors for a particular staff person, and we conducted SINAR for the past 2 years, the SINAR intervention for 2017 is listed, as well as 2018-19. We know that's an issue with all providers. It's impacting all providers, and it's very, very easy to accidentally choose 2017-18 instead of the active 2018-19 year. So it's on our tracking list. We have a tracking list that we are building for Jessica and Melinda and the state network in Raleigh that will be prioritized based on resources and time and priority, and that is certainly on the tracking list for consideration. We know that's posing a problem. It's too easy to select 2017-18 as opposed to the 2018-19 year. Let's see. Any news on when Chrome will work better with ECCO? No. Currently, the default browser and the recommended browser is Microsoft Edge. Seems to be the most dependable and the most accurate. So we would certainly recommend continuing using Edge as your default browser. Safari, if any of you are Mac OS users, appears to be almost as dependable as Edge. Oddly, Chrome it appears to be least dependable. We have had recommendations of clearing your browser cookies to alleviate any unusual behavior you may be experiencing. Sometimes that works within Chrome, sometimes that does not work. If you are having technical glitches or buttons that when you press they don't work extremely well, our recommendation is always to clear your cookies within your browser. And ECCO is very heavily dependent on cookie instances and tracking your movements within the database itself. So sometimes those cookies get corrupted. Any updates on reporting, how to pull reports, what reports are available? Some reports are active now within your intervention planning dashboard. If you've never noticed a drop-down box or bar that says filters and downloads, there's a couple of filters there related to errors and intervention profiles and so forth. There's also a tab, a link that says on-demand reports. If you click on it, nothing happens. That's where the majority of your customized reports will come from. And the idea is you'll be able to click that link, that tab that says on-demand reports and generate specific reporting queries based on the data that's being entered into ECCO. And that's from a provider perspective and a LME perspective. We're actually beginning those conversations this afternoon in terms of report design and rollout as soon as we finish the webinar. So if you have, I've asked several providers this question and they have responded with some really good suggestions. If there are types of reporting mechanisms, features, requests that you would like to see, now's the time to send your wish list in so we can consider those requests as part of the reporting design feature. This is priority number one. I believe it would be fair to say in the next couple of weeks and months to flesh out the reporting features. I've handled 4 TA calls just this week, 2 from LMEs and 2 from providers requesting ways to pull data out of the system for statistical analysis purposes. So we realize it's really important. Okay. Where do we include webinar trainings? If we or reporting, logging trainings for webinars, or I would say not only webinars, but other types of trainings. In terms of a webinar training, it's really the same as a face-to-face training or other training, meaning the format is not a large factor. The bigger factor is aligning the training to the actual strategy. If there's a relationship there, that's very, very important. But when all else fails, some of you may have noticed this. There's a brand new staff training intervention under community-based process within the master grid. So if your activity doesn't naturally, training activity doesn't naturally fit a specific intervention, you could choose to provide documentation of your training under that staff training intervention. We would caution folks not to use that too much. It's much better to be as specific as possible. And there is a notation on the master grid, the last column under notes, related to staff training reporting. This service type is for trainings you, your interns, and community volunteers participate in that are not attributable to a specific intervention, such as SAPS, HIV, or ethics trainings. It also includes conferences that cannot be attributable to a specific intervention. It does not include trainings conducted by your agency or partner agencies. This can get somewhat complicated and tedious. If you ever have questions, please let us know. We'll give us a call and we'll be happy to talk you through the process. One of the things what we promised in the summer was to try to provide coding in our webinar announcements and training announcements, and we really haven't did that. So we're going to track that and make sure we do that from this point forward. We do apologize, to make it easier. So if you do have training opportunities that need coding and you can attribute it to a specific intervention, but you really don't feel comfortable attributing it to a staff training intervention category, please let us know and we can talk you through that. I'll take a break here for a second. I think we have a question or two. Yeah, well, we do have a question that Karen asked, that how would we know if we've used that specific staff training? Is it different from other staff training? There is. If you're doing regular staff training, agency training, there is a category, I believe, of agency training on the master grid that we could use. Karen, if you want us to talk it out, we can make audio available. And this is a really good question other folks may be struggling with too. Hi, Karen. Are you there with us today? Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, ma'am. We can.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, I was just wondering, I know under ECCO in our interventions, we have, I believe, a staff training for one that we put all of our block staff trainings, our professional trainings, and that kind of category under all that. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't accidentally putting it under the staff training that we're supposed to be using limitedly.
Probably the best answer to that is for us to, you and I can go in and see how that particular process was set up in ECCO in your individual circumstance, and we could make sure that everything flows. So I could actually see a couple of ways you may have set it up, and the greatest majority of those, 80% of the ways, would have been totally 100% correct. Then there's a couple of outliers that I don't think will cause you any major issues long term, but we can certainly increase the accuracy of the data long term too, if we just spend 5 minutes looking at it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So why don't you email me afterwards, and we'll set up a time next week. I think it'll take us 5 minutes, and we'll be able to check out your process flow and make sure it's okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
No problem. Anyone else out there? Karen, I'll place you on mute again temporarily. Okay. Okay. Well, if no one else, we will continue. The intent of the staff training intervention option was to provide more flexibility and reduce complications what-if conversations. So the last thing we want to do is make it even more muddier than it is already. Sometimes when you increase options, we create additional mud. But again, that's not the intent, and will certainly help anyone who's working through some really good questions. Let's see. And that staff training intervention is only in the August master grid. So make sure that you're using the August master grid, which can be downloaded from the TTA website, actually the help desk. I'll remind everyone of before, that was one of the major changes of that master grid published in August. There's several changes, but that's an extremely important one, the staff training. Let's see, let's move on down the list. Where do we include capacity building work for including surveys? A really good question. And when I typed this out last night, there was actually many answers. And we'd have to have a tad bit more context, just in case. And we'll work with the agency that submitted the question. I don't think they're online today. But there's some options. So if you are doing capacity work or survey collection in the community, the question is really specific. It has to be answered within the context of how the work's being done and what the intent is. So is that survey part of your needs assessment or a strategic planning process, or you're actively implementing a specific intervention? And those questions would impact the answer to the question being posed. There are several ways we could, from my perspective, we could log this, but there's ways beyond this, I believe, as well, just based on individual circumstance. It could be included within community-based process, your needs assessment category. Could be part of community-based process, strategic planning, based on your process and flow and where you might be within the SPIF model, for example. It could actually exist within environmental strategies planning. That could be an outlier, but it could be there. It'd be a small outlier though. So the rule to the rise is, this is a really good question that on the surface appears somewhat simple and direct, but may have to be built within context of the greater process that's happening inside of your community. So those are some examples of peeling, what I would like to say, peeling the onion back, and which is somewhat counterintuitive at first, but the more that we do this, the easier peeling the onion back becomes sometimes. Where we continue to log display information, such as brochures and other printed materials, you will, within the context of that specific strategy and intervention. We know it's somewhat tedious to have specific counts and counting number of distributed items and those types of things. We actually, prior to the summer LME provider meetings, we actually removed a significant number of questions and screens related to this very topic to ease the reporting burden. We know it's still somewhat burdensome, but keeping an accurate count of items distributed is still very important at this time. I'll take another break and see if we have any Q&A or any folks who want to chime in. Okay. We do have some items of importance. We're beginning to have a significant amount of user information coming in, data being submitted. This beginning to indicate some patterns. Plus, with the TA calls that come into the center and the help desk request online, we're beginning to see a few patterns too. So these are just a few items we wanted to remind users to take advantage of. One of those is the briefcase. If when you log into ECCO, and see your initial string, you do have a briefcase feature there. Many of us have made use of the briefcase feature. Some of us not so much so. And some of us did in the very beginning of ECCO, but haven't considered using the briefcase since. So the briefcases, and this is the definition from the ECCO manual and from the ECCO system of the briefcase, is for providers to upload and store mission-critical completed reports and documents, things like needs assessments, capacity reports, planning, and so forth. Basically, the philosophical research framework for the prevention activities you are conducting in the community. And we do want to encourage folks to continue to upload if you have any new needs assessment data, statistical data, community briefs, and those type of things. That gives a really good picture of your community at large and the prevention work in general that's being conducted. Many LMEs are looking within the briefcase to check alignment between needs assessment processing and information and data that's being entered. So it could be a really good auditing tool, a way to serve as a filing case of sorts, to track documentation that could be beneficial during the audit process, or you just want to provide supplemental information to support your needs assessment findings and so forth. Another item that is just pretty, I think, neat and new within ECCO itself is the announcements box. You will note there's a brand new box there that says announcements. We are looking at ways to better indicate to the user system status. At this point, our first attempt at indicating system status is a basic announcements box. This announcements box is meant to provide new, important, and relevant information about ECCO to users. So always try to keep an eye and glance at the announcements box every now and then to see if there's anything new, or if you may be having problems, technical issues within ECCO. Check out the announcements box and see if there's a system-wide issue. If I'm notified of a system-wide issue from a user, usually our process is someone inside the office here reaches out to the ECCO developers, which are in Atlanta, and they conduct a systems check, or they may be conducting some type of maintenance. If it's a large-scale maintenance, I've requested to be notified in advance so we can place an announcement box or announcement within the box itself. If it's an expected issue, we will also place an announcement within that box too. Also, in a couple of weeks, this screen, the boxes will remain the same in terms of content and number of boxes, but they will be moved around. For example, the announcements box will be on the left-hand side and much larger with a vertical orientation. So you can see multiple announcements at the same time. And the other boxes will be moved around the tad too and made a tad bit smaller. So again, I mentioned the briefcase earlier. That's a good place to upload documentation. The help desk box is currently inactive. So providers are able to submit a help desk request, but we're not notified, sadly. There's a problem within that feature. So we're looking at ways to either replace that help desk system with the TTA help desk system we have in operation the past couple of months, or revise that box totally, because currently it's not being used in terms of functionality. So if you need help, please just let us know via email or telephone, and we can respond appropriately. Again, I will take a break for just a moment and see if any questions come in or if anyone wants to chime in. We do appreciate your participation today. So the announcements box is I think a feature we can grow into something that's really useful long term, especially if we can build a process for when we post an announcement about system issues or problems that you automatically receive a system update email or something for managers and primary users if that's a needed feature. The ECCO manual needs your feedback. We were having discussions this morning inside the office. The ECCO manual that we presented this summer was really our 1.0 effort at providing a useful document to providers. That ECCO manual, we updated again in October. We updated screenshots due to ECCO System changes. We clarified some issues with the omission of various screens. So if you have suggestions or items within the manual itself you want us to include, please let us know. We want this to be a document, a publication that is user-friendly and focused first and foremost. Again, the manual can be downloaded from the help desk as a PDF, or you can view the manual as an interactive online document with the appropriate screenshots, and many of the manual articles, as we call them, have videos embedded, and we really want to grow our video collection of how-to videos as soon as some of the design language and screens in ECCO calm down, and we don't believe they're going to change. But we do expect a few screen changes in coming weeks of how things look to create a more user-friendly interface that looks cleaner and more modern. And some of those changes are just subtle in nature. So the use of the help desk for ECCO purposes is really increasing dramatically each week, and we're really thankful for that. We don't want the community, the provider community, to think that this is a barrier of sorts. We certainly want you to reach out to us anytime, whether or not the answer is in the help desk. We love to hear from you. In the meantime, if we're available, on the right-hand side, bottom of the help desk, every page is a chat with us button. It's a live chat. So if someone is in the office, and this chat actually goes to my phone in real time as well, generally. If you need an immediate response, feel free to chat with us and submit a request. And if we are available, we will chat with you via text or via chat box. If no one is available, the message is queued into our ticketing system, and we will respond to you via email as soon as possible. That help button is kind of hiding behind the green chat button. It basically does the same thing, but it will walk you through trying to help you find the resource you need inside the database first, the help database, before it reaches out to us. So it shouldn't be hiding back there as it is, but we have to make some website modifications. Okay. I'll take a break for a moment, and we will give everybody a chance to maybe collect your thoughts and chime in. Again, the master grid. Consider the master grid the foundation for ECCO. I know we've said that many times, but when we conduct quality audits, or we're looking at the data on the back end to help programs clean up their consistency of data and the flow, generally for the biggest issue is within Part B. If we use the master grid to inform the setup questions within Part B of ECCO, then generally we find that the occurrences of data issues and data integrity issues and errors dramatically decrease on the back end. So it seems to be that Part B, the appropriate coding of the intervention, because the way we select the options in Part B sets up the reporting screens for almost every single ECCO process, errors, SINR, merchant tracking screen that's out there. So Part B, we just can't emphasize enough. If when in doubt, refer back to your master grid to align your intervention to the CSAP strategy and the IOM category and your service type. We are having conversations about how to best automate this process. We realize Part B is somewhat cumbersome, that in a perfect world, you would be able to choose your intervention name and your strategy would automatically pop up. And your IOM target categories, if it was a forced answer, it would be a forced answer, or you would have a selection of options based on the chosen intervention, as well as the service types. That's probably priority number 2 or 3 on our tracking list at this point, to seeing if what is the feasibility of better automating Part B, that is. Also like to hear from folks who have used the merchant tracking for SINR. If you have used the mobile interface and how effective that has been, or if you've run into any issues with how the screens are presented or technical glitches, we would love to hear from you. I talked with a couple of providers today that's attempting to report on SINR merchant tracking activity via mobile devices as they go along. We really want to hear from your experiences. That's really, really important. And it can inform future design paths and frameworks too. So please let us know. Anyone out there use the mobile tracking feature? I know we have several providers in process. Okay, let's see. I wanted to leave the last 15 minutes or so available for open discussion. Please let us know, and we can kind of unmute your profile, and we can see if there's any things we need to talk about out there. Yeah, we have one individual who's reported that merchant tracking seems to be slow in terms of processing, and especially if your merchant tracking list, this is from my experience, is very long. If your merchant store list is shorter, you may not be experiencing some slowdowns. Other times, if your list is longer, could be an issue. Also an issue that we noticed this morning and has been a point of concern, if you want to add brand new merchants to your list via the merchant tracking screen, that add merchant button is at the very bottom of your screen. And if your screens are very long, sometimes it's somewhat hard to get to, especially in the mobile screens. So we may have to move those buttons around to make that add a new merchant a little bit easier to thumb through. Okay, we have one comment that as is with so many areas nationally and in Southeast in the Southeast. Wi-Fi connections are sometimes spotty, and cellular connections are even more spotty sometimes, especially in ECCO is data intensive, so it does require lots of data going back and forth with a pretty high-speed connection to appropriately present those screens on your devices. And you may notice that even when you're sitting down with your PC, it just seems really slow. And a provider asking you if there's a normal, a standardized pen and paper form that could be distributed that somewhat, collects the information ECCO is requesting, that can be quickly and consistently filled out in the field, then brought back to the office for the actual data entry. We haven't produced such a document yet, but it's certainly something that I think we could do in short order, to be honest. That would just be an optional tool that we can place within ECCO. So we'll see if we can whip something like that up. I'm having a SINR meeting on Thursday with the SINR folks in Raleigh. So I'll ask and make sure that if we create just a really generic form that is just an available tool for those who want to use it, and post it in the help desk, we'll be happy to do that. That's something that we'll be happy to do. So we have another response from Wake and that part of the world that says they're using the feature. It is super long, as in Wake County. I would say Mecklenburg's probably has a very, very long list too, as does the Triangle and the Piedmont Triad here. But it seems to be working, and that's great to hear. Thank you so much, Virginia. Although Virginia mentions that they haven't used the mobile feature yet, but the integrity of SINR, of the reporting for merchant tracking, seems to be holding up, and that's great. Okay, we have some other providers who say that they've created forms themselves as a document flow through the process, and thanks for those of you who have offered those opportunities. And we may reach out to you and see if we can all learn from each other. Yes, we do have a issue that has been noted, and they're working on it right now. Is one issue I recently had was ECCO not capturing errors. I had to re-enter errors 3 times before the system would capture them. This was a known issue brought forward to us mid-week last week. It was immediately reported, and by Friday, we believe it was corrected. If you continue to have those issues, please let us know as soon as you can. If for some reason those errors are not being logged, we did some extensive research with the provider that mentioned this exact same circumstance. And one of the issues, there were no logs for that particular provider of the missing data, which means the server did not receive any of the data that was reported to it during that really small period of time, just for those errors. It could have happened just for that one person. It wasn't a system-wide issue. It was just that one person. The hypothesis was that for some reason there was a loss of internet connectivity between the provider and the server, servers plural, which exists in multiple places throughout the nation. So, to the credit of the developers, if you notice now, and currently being rolled out as well, there's a notice, or will be a notice at the bottom of the screen. And our intent is to place this notice on every single screen. When the server can't communicate to you, or your computer is not communicating to the server, you will receive basically a pop-up box, a little box at the bottom of the screen, a text box that says there's no internet connectivity. to let you know that the data that you're entering, even if you hit submit, it may not be making it to the server on the other side. So we'll have to see how that feature works. But the intent is, if your computer can't see the servers, the ECCO servers, your system will tell you, hey, we don't have internet connection. There's something wrong. So to give you a red flag of sorts. But if you do have those data integrity issues where you know you've submitted items but it's just not showing up, please let us know so we can help you track that. That's a ticket we immediately send to the developers and conduct research immediately. Yeah, I think Raphael's probably right. In thinking about that, Olanda may have sent out a form already in terms of a paper form to collect SINAR activity. Folks may have to correct me. Maybe it was someone else, but let me dig into that on Thursday and see if I can locate that form. We are building a SINAR help desk feature section on the help desk there, but we haven't posted that form, so I remember seeing the form now, but it was in early summer, late spring. DeAndre says that he was having data issues this morning. Okay, so I will report that this afternoon. We have a question and a really good question/statement about flowing of action plans. How the action plan features seem to not flow very well in terms of setting up the action plans, having so many steps. This is my observation. Having so many steps for the action plans, and copying and pasting those processes, and following through with updating the action plans and indicating them as complete. That's on the list. That's been a concern initially, to make sure the action planning process that everybody goes through in the community and your paper process is easily included within the ECCO reporting process too. So that is certainly a significant priority. It's set up pretty siloed. We totally agree. Totally. Yeah. We have another person saying that we did distribute a tracking sheet for SINAR. So I'll try to track those sheets down for everybody and send those to the ECCO mailing list and the prevention managers. Within our mailing list, we have 8 mailing lists, I think, up to working within our systems. And we have a mailing list that's just for ECCO users and ECCO managers or prevention managers. That way we don't overload everyone else who is not ECCO specifically involved with needless emails. Okay, that's great. There's one other item within the master grid that I did not mention that I believe I skipped over unintentionally here before we open up to conversation and question before we have to leave each other. And please keep the questions coming in as we move forward. There is a new ECCO reporter on the master grid under community-based process that is set up intentionally to provide a better reporting avenue for agencies that have a sole staff person that provides ECCO data entry and administration for that agency. So if you do have a sole staff person that works within ECCO that serves as your ECCO administrator we need to be tracking their time and hours as a ECHO reporter. I think across the state it's about 50-50. Many agencies have identified a sole person to be the ECHO reporter. They're the only person that enters data within ECHO for the entire agency. In other agencies, it's more distributed out to the actual prevention professional specialists in the field. So there's whatever process works best for your agency is what's best in the greater scheme. But we did want to provide a simplified reporting process for folks in agencies who have a sole reporter, that one person who is the ECHO administrator. And just in terms of passing too, it's always a good idea to identify at least one person who is that primary leader of the project, so to speak, your project manager of sorts for ECHO, who is your internal in-house expert, whether that's a prevention director or a manager or whoever that may be. Establishing that expertise in-house is really important. We've seen some great success with agencies who have done that, and one of the things we want to do long term too is support your experts and your users in the community of ECHO, and help you with issues and problems you may have, and decrease stress and increase your level of confidence with the system. Okay, so it's 2:54. Well, we have a few more minutes. Love to open up the floor again to audio or questions and answers. The Q&A box seems to be really active today, so thank you so much to those of you who have logged in and who posted questions. Again, in the next couple of days, maybe not immediately, you will receive a survey of sorts about today's webinar. It will be your regular satisfaction type survey, but it will also include some questions about how we can best provide ECHO support to each of you, the providers. And please let us know within the survey. And also, one of my major goals for this year, before July 1st, is to visit personally at least half of all of our providers. So we want to visit you and your staff in your community, for at least 13 of you. And during those visits, if you would like to be on our list of folks to come and see and talk about ECHO, provide ECHO support in person at your location, or help you with process flow issues within ECHO, please let us know. We'll be happy to come out and visit with you, whether you're next door or in Jackson County, or you're on the coast or somewhere in between. We really, we're committed to being more accessible and increasing our face-to-face communication as much as possible. The items, the agenda, the talking points of sorts, I will email out. I will include this document, the Word document, with the link for the seminar, the survey, the webinar survey. So you will have resources. We're also going to use this document to help build some of the FAQs within the help desk too. Good question. Will this webinar be coded under ECHO? Yes, we could. That's a really good question. I will include the appropriate coding inside the email, so you will know how to appropriately code this particular training activity, since it is associated with ECHO. Could go a couple of ways. So let me filter that one out too. And since this is the first time we really did something specific to ECHO, that wasn't including other statewide topics and conversations, that I want to make sure that we set up this type of training within ECCO for tracking purposes appropriately. Great question. Great, thank you so much. Other items? Okay, so in the meantime, thank you so much for logging in. We will also post this recording. It'll be next week, and I will also include a link to the recording to all attendees and post this recording, this video recording, in the help desk as well. We'll have to download the video and clean it up just a tad. Then we will post it. So again, thank you so much for your time and your interest. If you have ECCO issues, suggestions, points of improvement, you just want to throw marshmallows at me and ask why things are set up the way they are, please just let us know. We'll be happy to have the conversation with you and try to be as helpful as we can be. Thank you so much.